Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video where today we're going to be looking at some players we think you should potentially avoid when building your first team for FPL. Of course, so much can change between now and game week 1. So much can happen in pre-season that could change and make some of these assets more or even less appealing. So let's get straight into the video.
And so getting into the players, first up we do have Mateta, and the main reason that we are trying to avoid him at the moment is because he has been called up with the France Olympic team. And if they get to the final, it will be basically when the Community Shield is, which is a week before game week 1. So could be quite a bit of fatigue. Not only that, he hasn't spent any of the pre-season with Crystal Palace under their first pre-season with Oliver Glasner. So a few sort of sticking points there. Do I think he'll start game week 1? I think if he's fit, I do think he will. But it's just a couple of things that sort of throw a bit of air to caution. He's also quite expensive this year. £7.5 million is a big price increase from I think 5.5 that he was priced at last year. So, and there's a lot of options around his price with arguably better fixtures and not as much maybe fatigue and stuff like that. They've had like a whole summer off because they haven't been at the Euros or Copa America and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts on him, Ben? Do you agree with that sort of thinking in terms of the Olympics?
Yeah, I think 1 week before is the final, and then obviously you're coming back, and it's not going to be too much of a break. He's going to need a bit of pre-season regardless, like playing an international camp and then coming back straight back in. He's going to be fatigued. He's going to need to sort of build back up again and buy in sort of Glasner's style and sort of what he's trying to implement for the new season. So I do think we probably won't see him starting until maybe even sort of game weeks 2, 3, or 4. Like it could be any one of those game weeks, which makes him a big risk and one that probably shouldn't be worth looking at this moment in time. But of course, if France end up going out quite early, which I don't think is likely looking at the squad, then the opinion on that could very well change. Okay, so next up is Jarrad Branthwaite, and the main reason being is he's a 4.5 million defender priced at 5 million. Of course, Everton had a decent season last year in terms of the defence, and Branthwaite did get a couple of attacking returns, but he's nowhere near worth that 5 million price tag. For 4.5, you can rotate to better defences than the Everton defence. So for us, it's definitely going to be an avoid, and we don't think anything that happens in pre-season will change that.
No, yeah, definitely priced a little bit too high. I know Everton's defence was decent last year, 12 clean sheets in 35 starts for Branthwaite, but you can equally get Mykolenko, who should be their starting left back, for only 4.5 million as well. And obviously he probably offers a little bit more attacking threat than Branthwaite too. Fixtures to start the season aren't great. Brighton at home, Tottenham away. From a defensive point of view, doesn't look that interesting. And I think when you compare Everton to maybe like a Fulham got 9 clean sheets last year, and Anthony Robertson, for example, their left back, got 6 assists. So he's got double the attacking returns of Branthwaite and only 3 less clean sheets. So I think, yeah, like we mentioned, you can definitely get other £4.5 million defenders from better teams, Man United, Villa, Newcastle, and it just suits the team a lot better. Okay, so the third player to avoid for game week 1 this season is going to be Gabriel. Someone had to make the thumbnail, so here he is, Gabriel. 35 starts last year. Obviously, he was so solid for Arsenal, and his attacking threat was decent as well. Obviously, I know he matches Branthwaite in terms of attacking returns, but he was so dangerous from pretty much all set pieces that Arsenal had last season. One of the main things here with Gabriel is obviously at the start of last season we saw a bit of rotation with him and Timber until Timber done his ACL. Obviously Timber is now back in the squad, as well as a new signing Calafiori on the way, both of which can play in that left centre-back and left-back role. So I don't think this necessarily means that Gabriel will not start, but I do think there could be more rotation than we saw potentially last season, obviously due to that Timber injury. Obviously, Ben, you had him in your first draft. Do you feel like maybe that going Saliba is worth it just for the safety, or do you think the attacking threat with Gabriel is worth the risk?
Oh, it's a good question. I think that personally, I see where you're coming from with the risk element of it, but we've also seen Arteta not rotate much at all with his teams. It's completely different in the way that he does that to someone like Pep. So I think you'll be able to see very quickly who he's preferring as his centre-back partnership, because he's not going to change that too often going into sort of the first run of games, and you're going to sort of see who's going to play. And I think Gabriel is probably nailed on maybe just a little bit less than Saliba. Obviously, Saliba's so high owned that the high upside of Gabriel is that if he gets a goal or an assist, and we've seen that on times last season where he's picked up that mega haul last season, and there's that potential of him scoring a goal. So yes, I think Gabriel's probably the sensible pick. Not Gabriel, Saliba, sorry, is the sensible pick, but Gabriel is a pick that I think is safe for now. But when we see games in pre-season, etc., there will be a couple of games towards the start of near the start of the season where we can really truly understand what his preferred back four is going to be, Arteta. So it's almost like a wait and see moment for him. I think an Arsenal defender, regardless, is going to be really sensible to own because the expected ownership of the Arsenal defence in total is going to be very, very high, especially like even with the price increase, they're definitely still going to have a lot of ownership. Okay, so next up, we've got a striker who's been floating around in a lot of Twitter teams so far since that Joao Pedro news came out. Adam Armstrong of Southampton. Yes, despite having a decent season last year, the last time he was in the Premier League, he bagged 3 goals in 30 games, which isn't a great return. I do think there's potential of him being decent throughout parts of the season, but I just wouldn't trust Southampton as an attack in general at the start of the season. I think there are more established attacks and attackers from teams that are a little bit better than Southampton that you can look to go for in your team that is at the same price at 5.5 million, or even just paying 0.5 million more and you're getting someone a bit more established in the Premier League. Josh, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with some of the points you made there in terms of the established attack and stuff like that. I think Armstrong last season though did look good, and he played a little bit of a different role than he has done before for Southampton. He's usually playing maybe out wide and stuff like that, but last season he was pretty much the focal point for Southampton, playing down the middle, sometimes off of Che Adams, but he usually started ahead of him, and Che Adams would be that sort of impact sub. So he is their talisman, and if you like that sort of vibe with talismanic figures, we've seen it in years gone by with the likes of Solanke, Ivan Toney. He's that type of player where he's going to be on pretty much all penalties, potentially some free kicks, and then also he's going to be, their talismanic figure in terms of the amount of goals and assists that he provides to that team. It'll be interesting to see whether he can do it in the Premier League. Obviously, it's a lot harder than the Championship, but I thought last season he looked really well. And in terms of a sort of a bagsman talismanic player, he does look okay, but definitely for like 0.5 more, for example, you can get like Chris Wood, who will start for Nottingham Forest at the start of the season, better fixtures, only 0.5 more, pretty much the same sort of vibes to Armstrong. So yeah, I think he's an avoid for now. Okay then, so our fifth and final player to avoid to start the season at the moment is going to be Joao Pedro. And when the game dropped and everyone saw his price at 5.5 million, I think he was in a lot of teams, including my own for my first draft. Just such a cheap price. You're getting a player who is on penalties, on some set pieces, just really, really good for Brighton. Only 19 starts last season, but he was hampered a little bit with injury. Obviously scored a lot of goals in the Europa League for Brighton last season as well. The 12 attacking returns from him with 9 goals and 3 assists, with some high XGI numbers as well, nearly averaging 17 XGI for the season. So all of the data is there, and it suggests that he is a good pick. But he hasn't travelled, supposedly, with Brighton on their pre-season tour to Japan. There's not that much information on it at the moment. It could be a bit of like Chinese whispers kind of vibes at the moment. I have to wait and see on this one, maybe closer towards the start of the season, whether he's sort of been involved in any sort of pre-season work. What's your thoughts on this massive sort of dilemma with Joao Pedro, Ben?
Yeah, it's a dilemma, but it's one that will be simple to resolve depending on whether he plays a part in the games leading up to game week 1. I think if he does play and he's getting the minutes in the tank, then I think you've got to for the stats alone. And the goal contributions that he got last year, I think it was 20 in all competitions, something like that, which is a very decent return considering he had a couple of injuries last year. There was a couple of moments where De Zerbi, he just rotated everyone seemingly every week, so he wasn't always guaranteed to start. But we'll see with the new manager if he could be the preferred striker, and if he is, and they come off their pre-season tour from Japan, and they play a couple of practice games before the start of the season, and he's playing in them, I think a lot of managers are going to be tempted. So for now, it's a tough one. It's a wait and see until we get more information, basically.
Okay, then, so that wraps up our 5 players to avoid this season in FPL. Mainly for Game Week 1, we obviously, a lot of them are a wait and see. So, obviously, the more information we get, the better decisions we can make as well, which obviously helps us along the way in order to pick in that best team for Game Week 1.
And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And as usual, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
We'll see you guys
Later. Have a good pre-season, everyone.